What's up, everybody? John Hoover, AllSooners. You're listening to the Postgame Podcast from our observations. My gosh, 59-20, Oklahoma guys issued an absolute beatdown on West Virginia tonight in their final Saturday night home game of the season. Lots to talk about, but we're going to compress it into about 25 or 30 really good minutes. So stick with us. Ryan Chapman, Randall Sweet. This is we're not sponsored by Red Bull, but this podcast is definitely brought to you by Red Bull, because without this thing, we would not be we would be stumbling through the night. It is almost 30 in the morning, and we're going to try to make sense of what we saw today. 59-20, Sooners kicked the crap out of West Virginia.
Yeah, Hoove, any longtime listeners of the AllSooners Podcast, viewers of the AllSooners Podcast on your YouTube page, John Hoover Media, head over there for all the great videos that Randall shot, that you and I shot, Hoove, post-game. They know that this podcast doesn't happen without Red Bull. They know that our game day content doesn't happen without Red Bull. But I think the great words of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson best describe what happened. Oklahoma laid the smack it down on West Virginia tonight. It looked like they exercised some demons offensively, as it was a pretty clean game. I thought it was a pretty simple game plan. We had, I think I counted one play to Jalil Farouk behind the line of scrimmage on the perimeter. Other than that, it was go vertical, go deep, go often, and Oklahoma reaped the rewards tonight.
Yeah, run with power, don't jump off sides, don't false start. You know, they played, like Ryan said, a clean game. Brent Venables said tonight, post-game press conference, he thought it was the best 4 quarters that Oklahoma has put together, offense and defense, this year.
And, you know, watching that game, it's really hard to argue that it was the best 4 quarters that Oklahoma put forth. And, I mean, I think that when you take into account that Oklahoma didn't have one of their starting tackles in this game, they were without Dasan McCullough, a big contributor on defense, that really makes it even more impressive. You know, you guys mentioned the lack of mistakes on offense. It's amazing what happens when you stick to one running back the entire game. Just all around great performance from, quarterback, wide receiver, running back rooms. Looked like the offensive line played well from at least what I saw. Defense on every level played really well.
OU is 8-2 now. They ended a 2-game losing streak. They lost at Kansas by 5 points. They lost at Oklahoma State by 3 points. Tonight, you saw what happens when they put together a complete effort, complementary football, competitive depth, all those cliches that Venables loves. They came together tonight, and it resulted in a record-setting performance. And here's where I'm going with the record-setting performance. Dillon Gabriel, you've probably heard by now. 8 touchdowns. He was 4th in the nation already coming into tonight in points accounted for, touchdowns accounted for. He ranked 4th in the nation. He went up in next week's rankings, is my prediction, because he accounted for 8 touchdowns, 5 touchdown passes, 3 touchdown runs. I'm sitting here looking through I've got a PDF of the OU record supplement in my laptop, and so when he got to 7, I was like, I need to look that up. And then when he was getting ready to get to 8, I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to look that up. I got in my laptop, I looked it up. Baker Mayfield in 2017, Kyler Murray in 2018, both broke the school record back-to-back years of 7 total touchdowns. I think Baker had 7 TD passes at Texas Tech.
I was there.
Kyler had 6 and 1, 6 touchdown passes, 1 touchdown run. DG, the least runningest of all those. I don't know. Maybe that's not true now. I think maybe he has more rushing yards maybe than Baker Mayfield. Anyway, point being, he now sits alone atop that list. 8 touchdowns in a game. I asked Jeff Lebby, I said, you take pride in the fact that one of your guys broke that record that is held by 2 Heisman Trophy winners that are standing across the street forever? He said, I'm just happy for Dillon.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want fun press conferences of guys bragging on themselves, then this probably isn't the team for that.
I couldn't even get Dillon to talk about it.
Yeah, Dillon Gabriel, big team guy. Jeff Lebby just gives you nothing, frankly, ever, either way in any press conference. He's about as uninteresting in interviews as it gets. A lot of coach speak. But the play spoke for itself. And Dillon Gabriel had 2 really, really tough runs for 2 of his 3 touchdowns. He spread the ball all through the air. And I thought the cool thing, too, is 3 of those find their way to Drake Stoops. But You get Jaden Gibson involved on a touchdown. He was still spreading the ball. And this was the Dylan Gabriel that we saw the first 5 weeks of the season. The Texas game, I thought he was still really good, even though his numbers might not have looked as good because that was a good defense. And then that had gone away kind of these last 3 weeks. And so I thought that it was a group that, first off, great protection. And as Randall mentioned, Tyler Guyton didn't play in this game, and that's like a total afterthought. Because of how well, like, it was so much of an afterthought that no one even asked about it. Sounds like the murmur is perhaps maybe a head injury that was sustained late in the week in practice for Tyler Guyton. But Dylan Gabriel was calm, cool, collected. We saw his feet come back into play. Not like a 100-yard performance, but tough runs when they needed it.
And give you guys the numbers real quick. 23 of 36, 423 yards, 5 touchdown passes, had 50 yards rushing, and 3 touchdown runs. Oh, and by the way, we didn't even mention another career high for Drake Stoops, 164 yards receiving on 10 catches and 3 unbelievable touchdowns for him.
Yeah, so taking one step back, you mentioned the offensive line. Jacob Sexton played really well. He got beat once early in the game, but after that, I didn't really notice any missteps from him. Drake Stoops, you mentioned it. He had a phenomenal game, catching the ball, holding on through contact. That's probably going to be the big play that everyone remembers because it started a fight right afterwards. But he was breaking tackles. He looked elusive in the open field. He looked fast. Obviously, Drake Stoops is never a guy that goes down easily, but really just putting his shoulder down, being able to take defenders into the end zone tonight. So obviously, Drake Stoops' career day. The past 2 weeks, I think he's accounted for something like 22 catches, 290 yards, and 4 touchdowns in the past 2 games. And even if you go back to Kansas, he was the Sooners' leading receiver, 4 catches, 76 yards in that contest. So, since that UCF game when Nick Anderson kind of took the lead, Drake Stoops has been the Sooners' number 1 option since Andrew Anthony went down.
Yeah, and he had that little deal in the media on Monday night where he said, man, I don't care if we're 0-8, I'm in here 10 hours a day and I'm working because I love football, I love the game of football, I love OU football, I love the University of Oklahoma. You talk about a kid's legend growing. At the end of the season, the team's falling apart, they're losing games, and he's out there setting career records, and then he give a little press conference about how, or not a press conference, just an interview about how he loves the University of Oklahoma. He might be the most popular player on not just this team, but the most popular player here since Baker Mayfield, maybe? Just in terms of the fans just pouring out adoration for him. I think he's right there with Baker.
Yeah, that or maybe the most popular since CD. Fans really like CD a lot.
He's not a Stoops, man. I'm with you on that, but he's not a Stoops.
Yeah, Stoops also isn't a Baker. That's not a knock on. Baker might be the most popular player since Brian Bosworth. So I think that Baker should be chucked aside to his own category, and Stoops may be the top of the rest of everybody else. It's certain people always like Drake Stoops, the Drake Stoops story, but people like the Drake Stoops story now not because of anything. He could have our last names, and the way that he goes out there and plays, and you've seen it the last 2 Saturdays in particular, people love him some Drake Stoops.
Drake Stoops wasn't the only guy catching passes tonight. You see Nick Anderson, 4 for 119. You see Austin Stogner with a career night out of nowhere, 4 for 69 and a touchdown. Jaden Gibson had his first touchdown since, I think, non-conference play. Maybe he had one earlier against Iowa State. But 2 for 38 and a touchdown for him. Jalil Farouk, 2 catches for 30 yards. This passing game tonight was working. I gave you Gabriel's 423 yards passing. These guys, they had the protection. Here's the deal. I meant to ask Jeff Lebby this, but I know for 100% fact that he would not even entertain the notion of answering this question. How much RPO did you run tonight? How much passes did you call versus runs did you call versus RPO? You guys just go out there and look at the defense and see what they're going to give you. I think they ran a lot less RPO tonight than they have been. And correct me if I'm wrong.
And not only the RPO, but they were taking deep. They were they had a mind to take the deep shots. It was like a goal that the Sooners set out. It seemed like that on the field, at least, because while the past few weeks, I think fans and even observers of the team have kind of complained, where is where is this explosive offense that we saw at the beginning of the season? I mean, a few weeks ago, against Kansas, I even said, why is Jaden Gibson not on the field in this situation? Guess what? Tonight, OU pushes the ball down the field. Good things happen. We see Jaden Gibson in the game. Good things happen. Again, like you mentioned, the protection was really good, but it really seemed like I saw someone make the joke, Jeff Levy and Brent Venables opened up that Rolodex that they talked about against Oklahoma State. And I mean, you could really tell tonight, the offense, I mean, from start to finish, the offense moved really, really smoothly. I think they had 1 3-and-out in the second half that I noticed that looked kind of like the last 2 weeks. But aside from that, the offense looked aesthetically pleasing to watch. It was very smooth, and the players executed well on the field. You saw that on the scoreboard, almost 60 points. And that was with even, one Walter Rouse false start. So again, you got those areas cleaned up. There was a few little penalties on the skirmish at the end, but I think, like we said in the postgame stand-up, that the Sooners cleaned it up, and I think that also contributed a lot to their offensive performance.
I think Brent Venables and Jeff Levy threw out the Rolodex tonight, and I think they got a Palm Pilot.
I don't know what either of those are.
You don't know what a Palm Pilot is? Oh my God.
Tough.
He's 11 years old, though. You got to forgive him.
Well, Jeff Levy was playing with like a PS5 tonight, based off what was happening.
Madden or something.
Well, actually,
he was doing what he wanted. Somebody said next to me, he's in his bag. I'm not sure what in his bag means. Maybe you can tell me.
He was in his bag. I do know what that is, and Jeff Levy was in his bag tonight. The plays that they were calling feels like we haven't seen those in a while. Sorry, Ryan.
No, I actually think it's the other. I think that Jeff Levy was actually just playing Pong to continue this twisted metaphor, because everything was just really simple. I didn't. Good play design, all that stuff, but they weren't trying to get too cute. They weren't trying to go to the perimeter. It was, how do you get the ball as far north or as far south as possible directly in a straight line?
Yeah, they were real efficient at doing that. Dylan Gabriels, don't have his efficiency rating, but it was because 23 completions, 423 yards. That's going to be off the charts when you look at his NCAA passer efficiency rating. Let's take a look. Oh, Gavin Sawchuk. I asked the question of Dylan Gabriel, I guess. You've got Drake Stoops, right, who's coming off his career high for the second straight week. And you've got Gavin Sawchuk running the football, who's coming off his career high for the second straight week. And so I asked the question of the quarterback, is this just a case of you guys in week 10 identifying your playmakers? Or is that just how the game unfolds? And he basically said, you got to feed the hot hand. You give it to your playmakers. You find who the playmakers are. And when they get hot, you get them the football. That's what we're seeing. Gavin Sawchuk, 22 carries, 135 yards tonight. He said he felt good. Averaged 6.1 yards per carry and didn't have one of those 64-yarders like he did in Stillwater last week. He had a 30-yard run. But he said he felt good.
And he looked good running the ball. I mean, there were not a lot of negative plays from him. There was a few of short to no gain, but it felt like most of the time when Sawchuk was touching the ball, it was a pretty positive gain for the Sooners. I mean, you saw good vision, really good patience from him. There's one play where it looked like they have him bottled up behind the line of scrimmage, and he's able to bounce outside, break a few more tackles, get upfield. There's another play where OU was deep in their own territory, and he's able to, physical run, break a few tackles, get about 24 yards, put OU out into more towards the midfield. And Gavin Sawchuk ran tough, which I think is something that a lot of people haven't seen out of his game, just because we haven't seen Gavin Sawchuk that much this season. I mean, people think of him as the speed back, especially again, breaks the long one against Oklahoma State. But tonight it was a lot of tough, hard, consistent running. I think you saw that he's got that capability. And again, it's amazing what happens when OU sticks to one running back. I mean, Tawi Walker barely saw the field tonight.
I think he was hurt again. He only had 2 carries.
Dalen Smothers got on, and I think that was late in the game when the game was kind of out of hand already. But again, OU stuck to one running back. They didn't, as you mentioned, try to get too cute, try to bring the whole running back room in the game. And I think that going forward, maybe these last few games, Gavin Sawchuk is going to be the RB1.
I'll tell you what, before we jump over to the defense, we'll stick with the offense just a little bit longer, and that is to say, in addition to Gavin Sawchuk. Where was I going with this? Oh, Gavin Sawchuk, yes. I told you the numbers, 22 for 135. He told me that, he was feeling good. I asked him specifically, are you one of those backs that likes to get the football in the fourth quarter, grind people down? You're better. The more you get the football, the better you run. He said, yeah, sure. But just trying to play within the system and run the plays that are called. So everybody's being humble. But we got to stick with one more offensive thing, and that is Jackson Arnold is going to redshirt. He's played in 4 games. If you play in 5, you can't redshirt. So he's played in 4. He was not the first quarterback off the bench tonight. It was Davis Bevel coming in and cleaning up, mopping up duty for Dylan Gabriel tonight. And Dylan, by the way, was on the field late with a 32-point lead and got his 8th touchdown, right? I mean, it is what it is. I personally probably would have taken him out, but then you don't get to set that record. So you go back and forth.
Part of that also might be because OU wanted to stick it to West Virginia after that
little bit. Yeah, I think there was some edge and some attitude.
These games have been historically chippy, which has been weird for two teams that it's not like they were prior rivals entering the Big 12 or anything like that. But yeah, excuse me. Brent Venables said, never say never, but that's the plan right now. I took that as long as Dylan Gabriel's healthy, if we need someone to kneel the ball out in a 30-point win, it will be Davis Bevel. Reevaluate that situation if you need someone to play second and third and fourth quarter in a meaningful game, which makes a ton of sense. Jackson Arnold's a guy, he's the caliber of quarterback that if everything plays out the way that Oklahoma envisions it for him, you shouldn't have to worry about if he redshirted or not because he'll be leaving for the NFL draft early. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep that extra year just in case.
He's the backup quarterback, Jackson Arnold is. But in these situations like tonight, you're going to see Davis Bevel come in and close the games because they want to keep that year open. And that's smart. That's a good option. I remember, Venables was on that team in '99 when they had to burn Quentin Griffin's red shirt. And then what happened? They didn't have him again in 2003. So you're not looking ahead, but you're planning ahead. And I think that's smart. I think that's a good way of going about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that way, you give Jackson Arnold, if he needs it, potentially some more time getting used to the SEC, kind of gelling with some of those, new receivers. Obviously Emmett Jones is bringing in a lot of guys. It's going to be a big new receiving core after, Drake Stoops leaves, maybe Jalil Farouk, things like that.
Speaking of SEC, since you brought it up, the fans, I thought they did a really good job tonight of kind of putting it in the refs' faces. The Big 12 refs come here and they made a few more curious calls, questionable calls, and the fans were like, you know what? Let's get an SEC chant going. Every time it looks like we get a chance to put it in their face. That's the way these fans approach that. I got to say, I thought it was clever. I was impressed by their resilience.
Yeah, and again, I said this once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Go to the Wayback Machine, go to 2020, before Oklahoma had ever officially said they're leaving a conference or anything like that. Big 12 refs and Pac-12 refs were widely regarded as the 2 worst officiating crews in all of college football. These are the same awful Big 12 refs, and let me tell you, they're awful. It's the same just bad group, and I think that everyone, I was watching the Texas and TCU game. TCU was collecting 3 or 4 terrible pass interference calls against them. Remember 3 weeks ago, Houston had the terrible spot go against them. Why would the refs be conspiring against Oklahoma but be working to help Texas win a Big 12 title? There is no conspiracy. They just suck. And Oklahoma fans, I thought, had a great way to do that, which is to, like you said, chant SEC at the referees more than anything else. It was a minor miracle a couple years ago when they put Muscle Ref and that Big 12 crew in charge of the national title game, because all of us were like, why would you do that? This is a disaster. And I think that Oklahoma fans are ready absolutely to be out of this conference. But I thought it was a good way to, because there's been some ire of we're headed to the SEC, but Oklahoma fans don't chant SEC. That's been a conversation amongst fans and things like that. I remember fans being very upset at the student section for chanting SEC at the Lloyd Noble Center when Oklahoma shot the lights out and sent Alabama packing. No one seemed to be too much aggrieved with this SEC chant tonight because it was directed at maybe the least popular people around, the Big 12 referees.
Yeah, and the thing about it was among the things that they got going for was Drake Stoops plowing through that guy at the goal line, right, and running him over, dragging him 5 yards into the end zone for that touchdown, and then turning around and just spiking the ball. An emphatic NFL-worthy spike, if there ever was one in college. And then in the third quarter, you saw also, or no, that was third quarter. Fourth quarter, you saw Oklahoma. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
No, when Stoops got hit.
The spike was in the third quarter because the chants were in response to a couple of really just terrible pass interference flags earlier in the game. And then the Stoops spike was the tipping point for the SEC chants, which ironically was maybe the best call they made all night.
Good call, yeah.
And then Stoops' next touchdown where he just gets smoked in the end zone. Instead of calling it unsportsmanlike for Wilson standing over Stoops, the refs instead called a targeting, which was then reviewed. It wasn't targeting. I thought that was correct. It was just like a late hit, but not a targeting hit. And if they had just called the taunting, all would have been resolved. But instead, they called the targeting, which meant that no flag was thrown, which led to another outpouring of SEC chants, and it led to McCade Matower with little vigilante justice.
I said retribution. He went after that dude, and on an extra point. He didn't just go after him during the fight. He's like, I'll get you next play. He waited for his time. They're both on PAT, one on defense, one on offense, and he just went at him. And then he got an unsportsmanlike for what? Talking to the ref or something?
Well, I think
the second one was something. He got 2 and got ejected.
Well, I think what it was is...
And everybody loves him for it.
Yeah, they got the 2 offsetting for both of them pushing and shoving well after the whistle.
Wilson hit him in the face.
Wilson popped him in the face, and then McCade did the point and laugh and pointed right in his face mask. And that's when the ref standing there threw the second flag. So I think Matier I think his second unsportsmanlike was the point for evoking the punch, though the punch or the open hand whiff, slap, whatever, they probably should have just both got 2 flat, whatever. Big 12 refs.
And Matoyer on his way out of the stadium did receive a fist bump from OU president Joe Harris.
That's right.
I think that OU fans and their president are all in unison on how they feel about that.
Fans love the president tonight. That's when you know things are going good.
That play, that whole situation was wild, though. I mean, there was OU players running from the sideline trying to get in on the action there when that little skirmish was going on. Coaches running onto the field, having to hold players back, using some, as I heard right there on the field, very choice words to get their players off the field.
Colorful language, Brent Venables.
Colorful language. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah. I thought was handled very, very, very well by. The teams to not let that escalate any further than it could have, to just kind of keep it at a little pushing and shoving. Good on everyone involved.
All right, let's talk about the defense. Oklahoma came in. Who was the idiot among us who picked West Virginia in the picks this morning? Was that me?
Did you do that?
33-30 was the score I picked. I said West. I got tired of picking OU to win, only watch them lose the last 2 weeks. So I said, you know what? I'm picking West Virginia. Because I thought they were going to run the football successfully, and you know what they did not do? They did not run the football successfully, at least early. They finished with 170 yards, I think, which is way below their average, but they only had 71 at halftime. They were averaging like 3.2 yards per carry at halftime. Game was over by then, as you guys know. CJ got hurt. Donaldson got hurt, so he was not the man the whole game. That's too bad. I was hoping that 14 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown, but I was hoping that he'd be able to play a whole game. I wanted to see what he was about playing the whole game. Jaheim White, who's averaging like 8.6 per carry, he came in and got 9 carries for 39 yards. And then the man who was the real, Brent Venables said he was kind of the focal point of the offense, is Garrett Green running the football, which he did very well. 114 yards last year, or 119 yards last year, 14 carries. And just frustrated the heck out of this Oklahoma defense. Well, they boxed him in tonight. They caged him, as Brent Venables likes to say. He thought they did a great job. He finished with just 24 yards total yards today. He only averaged 2.4 per carry, which is huge for him because he's been averaging 5.6, so less than half they held him to. As a team, West Virginia, 176, 4.3 per carry, which is about... you're going to have a really good chance to win if you take away what the other team does well. The other thing they do well is throw the ball deep. 15.93 yards per completion. Guess what? He was under 50% throwing the deep ball. He threw a lot of them today, and they all were off target. Oklahoma's defense, is it as simple as getting Danny Stutzman back and everything's better?
Yeah, I was going to say they got their mojo back, and
Yep.
Danny Stutzman is their mojo. He's their surest tackler. Coming out of the Kansas game, when we were putting some numbers together, going just off the Pro Football Focus grades, Danny Stutzman has a missed tackle rate of 8.5%, which is the lowest by far of all the linebackers. He's the surest tackler. And today they were able to put Stutzman at the mic, slide him over to allow Stutzman and Kip Lewis, who are Oklahoma's two best linebackers on the interior, play those guys together. And look, I don't think Danny Stutzman was 100%, but from the very first drive, he was still stepping out, grabbing guys, pulling them backwards. He had a couple of big plays, and Brent Venables said it, like, after the game, this is a paraphrase, he's like, you'd like to say that everyone moves on, but he's an emotional leader, and the defense responds to him, and him being in makes a difference. And so I think you saw that tonight, and it'll be interesting to see what Oklahoma if they can manifest a destiny here going down these last two games, if they get a second shot at somebody, if Danny Stutzman makes a difference.
Stutzman's back. What does he do? He leads the team in tackles, 8 tackles, and in tackles for loss, 2 tackles for loss for Danny Stutzman.
And
it's as simple as that.
And he was hitting people hard too. I
He
mean,
was.
Being down there on the field,
He missed it.
Yeah, there's a few times being down there on the field that I was like, man, he just laid a lick on that running back or something. I mean, and you saw how well he is playing sideline to sideline, which he was making tackles on both sides of the field.
Robert Spears Jennings got his first career start tonight, responded with a career high tying 7 tackles. That dude is so intense, and on that punt,
Yes.
I thought he killed a man on a punt tonight.
Yeah.
Jeez, and it was a clean hit too, totally clean.
They reviewed it for targeting.
They reviewed it
Well, I
for
was gonna say,
targeting because it was so violent.
Here's how you know he hit him so hard, is that it almost looked like Spears Jennings laid the hit down, then as he got up and started trotting toward the sideline, he was kind of like looking back over at the referee, like, please leave that flag in your pocket. Like, I just hit him really hard. It wasn't bad. I just, please leave it be.
What'd you guys think about the secondary tonight? I thought Garrett Green had some receivers open and just missed them.
There are still holes in coverage. Garrett Green can't take advantage. Garrett Green's a 55% passer.
Yep.
Kenai Walker continues to get beat.
He got struggled a little bit tonight.
And he got beat once, I think, for either a touchdown or a long gain, and he got beat another time.
And dragged the guy down for a 49-yard completion inside the 5-yard line, and guess what they had right after?
Goal line stand.
Goal line stand by that defense. Holy cow.
There was another play where the receiver, I think, was out of bounds, but Kenai Walker got beat deep on that play too. And that, again, if that's not Garrett Green, if that's a more accurate passer, that could have been a touchdown too. So, again, not trying to be super negative, but there are, like Ryan said, there are holes. Kenai Walker, I thought, was really the one glaring hole today. I thought Kendall Dolby, who we've kind of picked on the past few weeks, improved his play a lot today. Seems like maybe they weren't necessarily putting him deep down the field in coverage, letting him kind of come play downhill more. I mean, he laid a lick on Garrett Green there late in the game. But again, the one weak point that I noticed the most was Kenai Walker. Obviously, it wasn't a terrible game from him. I mean, there was still some moments, but 2 plays that stuck out to me where he got beat pretty bad.
Dolby played Deshaun McCullough's role today, because did we talk about McCullough? If we didn't,
Right,
McCullough was a little banged up, and Brent Venables basically said, paraphrasing, he's been banged up before, and that led him to miss a couple of games, so if they could get through tonight without him, they wanted to try to do that to give him a chance to rest up.
He was doing some pregame stuff. He was going, dropping back and catching interceptions that they did in pregame. So it's not like he's really hurt.
I watched him in the first quarter.
I think Brent said precautionary.
Yeah, in the first quarter, he was standing with the guys ready to go sub in with his helmet. And then after Oklahoma extended that huge lead, that's when he stepped away. So he had his helmet the whole time. I think if they really needed him, he probably could have played. But I think that's why Dolby was able to play a little closer to the line of scrimmage. He used a lot more of that stuff. The good news is Keaton Slovis next week is a joke. And Hoover, the youngster at TCU. Josh Hoover, yeah, not John Hoover, Josh Hoover, the inferior Hoover. He's got a really live arm. He can make some really good plays. He also, I think, is thrown at least 3 balls directly into the hands of defenders each. He's really young, and he makes decisions like a young guy. So 2 weeks from now, they'll probably get a test on Black Friday. They'll have opportunities to pick the ball off. Keaton Slovis is laughable and shouldn't be playing quarterback anymore.
Sooners had 2 interceptions tonight. Both of them were fairly impressive. Jacoby Johnson got his first, I think, career interception, and then Reggie Pearson got one, the transfer from Texas Tech, after Billy Bowman just toyed with this receiver and reached in and batted the ball up in the air. It was fantastic. Fantastic effort by both guys' part. I thought defensively, Sammy Omosigho got some flowers from Brent Venables, right? He came in and played some.
He played Dolby's role, basically. He was the backup Cheetah.
Cheetah, right.
Everyone got slotted up one, which means that Omosigho was that guy. Instead of Jaron Cannington, that was kind of interesting.
Nothing great out of the D-line tonight. Just kind of average. I thought they played well in the run game.
I was going to say, I thought the guys on the interior played really well in the run game because there was some plays where
a lot of zeros by the running game.
Where Jonah Laulu, DeJohn Terry, and another guy, Grayson Halton.
Yep,
Grayson Halton made a few really nice plays. So the interior, like you said, maybe not as splash plays, but I thought they had a nice game.
They were real solid on the inside. Let's switch to.
It's just real quick. 3rd straight game without a sack.
Yeah.
They did, though, have...
And when's the last time that happened? We said 2004.
2004. We'll have to go do...
Was 2.
Actually,
so 3 is...
We'll let Tom Green do the work with that 247.
That's a good idea.
They did, however, get 8 tackles for loss and 8 hits on Green. So it wasn't like they weren't getting there. Green was doing a pretty good job of when they were getting close. Garrett Green, not Tom Green. Tom Green would have gone down like a sack of potatoes.
Dang.
And you know it, Tom.
Tom catching a straight
Garrett Green.
spot.
Tom does great work on the Peloton scene. Garrett Green was getting the ball out about when guys were getting close to him.
You mentioned the goal line stand. I mean,
they're so impressive when they do that.
I mean, it's like, and that was not the only 4th down stop they made all night.
Right.
There was 2 tonight. They made 2 against Oklahoma State last week. They made 1 against Kansas the week before that. Almost against UCF if Jaron Canick doesn't yell in the guy's face.
That's right.
They made they made the 1 against Texas. I mean, it feels like when this defense is put in short yardage situations that the Sooners are really good at responding. They know, it might sound cheesy, but in that moment it feels like they have that mentality that they can stop the team. Which again, it feels like when you're that close, that congested, that's part of the battle.
When you learned you can do it against Texas, you can do it against anybody. Because Texas is Texas is still first place in the conference for a reason. They have really good talent this year. Spin it ahead, boys, to BYU. We found out tonight, right around midnight, a little before midnight, that BYU game will kick off at
10 a.m. local.
No, come on.
Today at Mountain, it's 11 a.m. kickoff.
11 a.m. kickoff for BYU,
sorry.
Oklahoma. Yeah, it's like a chorus. OU kicks off at
11
a.m. Come on, join in.
Sorry, I'm letting Tom know he's listening to the pod.
So, OU BYU, that is a little bit, I feel like the Big 12 might be saying, hey, OU, screw you, we're going to put you at 11. When they're really screwing over BYU, who wants their most high-profile game. You could say arguably one of, if not the most high-profile games in school history. Conference game, next to last game of the year, coming to town, Oklahoma Sooners. You want that thing at night if you're BYU, and it's 11 in the morning, which is actually 10 in the morning in the mountains. So kind of a raw deal for BYU. And it's supposed to be the Big 12 homecoming weekend at Provo. Have fun with that at 10 in the morning.
This is
interrupts the parade.
Tough. I don't know how they're going to get up that early without the caffeine. This is a huge hit on the historical footprint of what's going on. First off, Oklahoma suddenly has new life once again in the Big 12 race.
Yep.
OSU lost at UCF, as you know.
45-3.
Embarrassing loss.
Kansas lost at home to Texas Tech, as you know, meaning that we have spent all night sifting through Big 12 tiebreakers, which I have read them.
Don't try it.
I am more confused now that how it's worded. It's a whole to-do, but the Sooners now have hope. They have life. Here's the cliff notes. The easiest way: OSU loses again, or Texas loses, and then some weird stuff happens. We're going to have to wait. There are so many hypotheticals that we're going to have to wait 2 weeks for anything else.
We yelled at Bob Bowlesby for not expanding back in 2000. What the heck year was that? 15, 16? When they didn't.
It
When they could have expanded and didn't. We're thankful now that he didn't because expansion sucks. You got 14 teams and only 9 games. They play them, but they don't play them. That team doesn't play them, but they do play them. It's confusing as hell. So it's just save yourself. I looked at it for about 20 minutes and I came away thinking I know nothing more.
This is the...
please don't read that on the podcast.
This is the record. You throw out head-to-head, right, because not everyone's going to play each other. Record against the next highest placed common opponent in the standings, parentheses, based on record in all games played within the conference, as if you would have only done the record of 4 of the games. Shout out Big 12. Proceeding through the standings. So, like, do they all have to be common opponent? Because there's about to be, like, a 4-way logjam.
Conflicts.
And there's a ton of conflicts. So, we'll figure that out for you guys.
Is it 4 or 5 right now? In second place.
Right now,
it's 4.
It's 4.
Plus Texas so far.
If Texas loses, it becomes 5. Like I said, too much to have. But there's other big history on the line next week.
Okay.
Do you guys know the all-time series record between Oklahoma and BYU?
Yes, I do.
Randall, do you have a shot in the dark at what it is?
0-0?
The Sam Bradford wishes it was over.
I watched that game. I remember now that you mentioned it, but
BYU is one of the few programs that has played Oklahoma
more than once.
Unbeaten against the Sooners.
Yeah, 2-0.
2-0 the Cougars are.
Everybody remembers was it the Copper Bowl in Tucson, 31-6?
I remember the Copper Bowl.
I don't remember
Gary Gibbs'
that.
last game, Schnellenberger was in
What
the
year
press
was
box
that?
doing a press conference, smoking his pipe, telling everybody how he was going to change the culture at OU.
What year is
94.
It? Oh, that was before I was born. My mom was in high school in 1994.
Come on.
So it's a little
Now you got to
historical
throw your mom
footnote.
under the bus like that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. But a little historical footnote, but it is, these two teams don't match up very often, obviously, as we just mentioned. So even though BYU absolutely stinks, they'll be up for it at senior day, and it's something that no one that plays on this team is going to worry about, something that Brent Venables isn't going to worry about. But it is a game with some historical ripple.
We'll be there. All 3 of us will be in Provo, and can't wait. I'm going to make a special trip. You know, we're going to be there on Thursday. We're actually going out a day early. We're going to find some mountains to climb. I'm actually going to go look for hang with me here, the Barry Switzer Sewage Treatment Facility plant. If you're old enough like me, you know what I'm talking about. You guys look it up. Barry Switzer Sewage Treatment. Look it up. It's a real thing. I asked Kalani Sataki about it at Big 12 Media Days, and he just went, "Huh?" I was like, "Never mind. You're not in it like a lot of people in Oklahoma."
Does it date back to the 84 and 85 seasons?
84. BYU National Championship. Oklahoma playing Washington in the Orange Bowl. Sooner Schooner tipped over, and that thing literally went sideways.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and they named a sewage treatment facility after Barry Switzer. They did, honestly.
I was in college and I watched the Sooner Schooner tip over once in Norman.
It's been known to happen.
I think that fell apart. Although the one in Miami, wasn't it like intentionally rigged with a little message for the locals? Or was that a different Orange Bowl in Miami?
I don't know. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, the Schooner in the Union has the.
Yeah.
Has
I know
some.
the one you're talking about.
It's a message to the locals of Miami.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay. We'll have to get into that.
Something that Brent Venables would never say.
No, we'll have to do that. We'll have to get into that in another podcast. For now, I think we're going to wrap it up. Good. Anybody else got anything to add? No? Thanks for listening.
We're on to BYU.
We're Brent Venables. We're on to BYU. If anybody asks a question about play calling this week and he doesn't say we're on to BYU, I'm going to be so disappointed.
Brent Venables is also a big newspaper guy, so shout out to newspapers.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys still have newspapers? Is there newspapers around? What was that,
Big
Brent?
shout at all the newspaper guys in the room.
What was that? I did not know that. I know Eric Bailey he stood up and he doubled his fists. He's like, what?
And also Dylan Gabriel hates tennis players.
Oh, yeah, that's the 2 takeaways from tonight.
If you want to figure all that out, head to allsooners.com. All those interviews are up. They're there. Watch them.
Yep. Player interviews, coach interviews, the whole thing. Highlights, the man shot. He did a good job tonight. Check out the highlights. Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week on the AllSooners Podcast. The Postgame Podcast from Provo Saturday night is going to be a ton of fun because it's not going to be at 2 a.m. like it is right now. You can find all those shows on Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean, iHeart, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. If you have an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the AllSooners Podcast. And, of course, all the shows are on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. And don't forget our website, allsooners.com. Just click on the player and listen on your tablet, your phone, or your computer. For Ryan Chapman, for Randall Sweet, I am John Hoover. See you guys.